mckee.com. I've presented the spreadsheet, this tool, at a number of courses, talks in different states, and at presentations, also in webinars, and wanted to go through and record it so that anybody could access and see what we're doing here. What we've got is a physical therapist, outpatient practice, that gross revenue at around $730,000. So we're going to move through this a little bit quickly. Of course, you can go back and replay it, and I'll do a recap of the sheet where you can find it at the end. But $730,000, 59% on COGS, which COGS, cost of goods sold, is all your people basically, and any benefits, pay, salary, taxes, and billing costs associated with delivering your care. The reason we're putting it in there a little bit different from what your accountant might suggest is that you're scaling the number of people in your practice in order to serve the number of patients. So we're kind of considering that the cost of goods sold. Well, the overhead's everything else. It's all your IT, rent, fixed and variable expenses. Doesn't really matter if they go up and down. Equipment, utilities, everything else. So these two numbers ought to total your total expenses. And what that'll do is calculate your profit, or what's left over after you've paid everything. So now what we're going to do is go through and ask a couple questions. What can you do to increase pricing? Are you really vigilant about collecting copays and deductibles up front, or do you let some of that go, and does that end up as bad debt? Can you do that? If you could do that, could you effectively increase your price of the amount you're collecting by 1%? What if you were able to do 1%, or you got rid of a bad contractor? There are any number of things. Saw more cash patients, but you increase your average price. But let's say it's just 1%. That's a net gain of $7,300 a year. Okay, so you just saw a 10% increase on your profit to $80,000. Now, next thing, we're going to go through and look at what if we increased our volume. I'm not just talking new patients, but in our visits per case, what you're going to want to do is go through and look at your plans of care, and you're going to want to do an audit, a random audit, and of a decent sample size, not 3 people, but maybe 25 or 30, and see what your therapists are writing for. Are you writing plans of care for 11 and a half visits on average, and you're only seeing them for 10? Is there attrition? Do you have a lot of one and dones? Do you have early dropouts? Do you have things like that you could manage to and improve upon? And let's say instead of 11 and a half or 10, you were able to get your number up to 11 visits per case. What if you were able to increase by 1 visit per case so that it was more closely matching the plan of care, you got better buy-in from your patients, more accountability for your therapist? What would that do to your cash flow? So you enter that number here, the change, and it gives you a 10% change, which is literally a 10% change to your revenue. That one more visit, and by the way, you're going to have happier patients who are achieving their goals, so potentially that turns into more new patients down the road as well. But you could increase your revenue by 10%. We just doubled our profit margin. Okay, so now we go units per visit. I've seen a lot of therapists in a lot of different practices underbilling or not billing for all of their time. If you plug in your current numbers here, whatever they might be, and then look at what your target is, maybe you're already there and you're not going to realize any additional gain, but maybe you're going from 3.5 to, let's say, 3.8 units per visit. That's an 8.6% increase. Look at your revenue. Your cash flow improved by $62,000+ a year. And by the way, this all goes to your bottom line. This is EBIT. EBIT being earnings before interest and taxes. This is your profit. So you can add another $62,000 to your profit. Before we even do anything else, add any new patients or mess with these other numbers, we've more than doubled our profit. We've realized an additional $142,000. So we've gone in on a business that's grossing $730,000 with a $73,000 profit margin. We've gone to an almost $900,000 business with a $200,000 profit margin. Would you like to achieve that? So now let's look at new patient numbers. What if we're seeing these new patients, we're realizing, an increase in the case, the value per case, but if we increase our new patients, let's say from 82 to 100, we see a significant increase in revenue. The interesting thing here, though, is if you're at capacity, and of course you'll have to make adjustments if you're not, but if you're at capacity, you're going to have to hire and bring on another therapist. And then you can plug in your incremental cost here, your hourly average. This is calculating with 18 more new patients, 10 hours per patient per month after you kind of get up and running, 180 hours. That may not be the right number for you. So you can just plug in here, maybe it's not hourly, maybe it's per visit. So you think of it more as 180 extra visits a month based on those 18 new patients a month. And you can make an adjustment and see, but there's an associated expense. And remember, and there are notes in the sheet, but remember that's going to include all the taxes, benefits, all the associated expenses for that therapist. You're also going to want to plug in any additional marketing expenses that you're looking at. So let's say you spend $12,000 on the marketing campaign to get those additional 18 new patients a month. That's going to come out of it. So you realized another 78,000 a year out of that with a bit of a volume increase. But I really want to emphasize what you already have with no additional expenses. You can realize an additional $140,000 in revenue increase, maybe $150,000 by the time you get in here and add in some management at the front desk. So to recap, so far, we've got a business, physical therapy, outpatient practice at $730,000 with a 10% profit margin. Not bad. If we manage our front desk more closely and we manage our visits per case to see people according to their plans of care, whatever that might be, we manage our units per visit and make sure our therapists are billing for all their time, and we do a bit of a marketing effort to increase our new patients, we can realize a significant increase in our profit. That's $220,000 increase over the 73 to our profit so far. So that would take us to almost $1 million business with a $293,000 profit margin, increasing our profit by 300% to nearly a 30 or just over 30% margin, which would be outstanding for a physical therapist private practice. The other things you can do to impact cash flow and revenue are decrease your COGS. Now, cost of goods sold, again, being your personnel and billing expenses, this might be a hard sell or something difficult, but let's say you had someone who had been with your practice for a long time, they leave or retire, and you replace them with a lower wage worker. It might result in a 1% reduction in your overall cost of goods sold. So that'll bring in another $4,000. Overhead reduction, that's your rent, IT, maybe you can renegotiate with vendors, move your phone system, something like that. Even a 1% change there, though, could still net you $2,000 at the end of the year. So you have to decide if that's worth the effort. Reduction in debtor days means basically how long are you let's look at this. So it's reducing your average DSO. So what's your average age of accounts? How long does it take you to collect? So if you're able to get from 33 to 32, you can reduce your debtor days by a day. That means there's $1,800 in your bank account that you wouldn't normally have there. It doesn't increase your overall revenue. You're just getting it earlier. But let's say you could even increase by 2 days, or decrease by 2 days rather, the your age of accounts from 33 to 31 days. That's an additional $3,600 in this scenario in your bank account that you can use or have access to. Increase in creditor days means the things like if you have loans or debt, if you're paying the phone bill, equipment leases, any of that type of thing, or let's say you're buying goods or buying equipment, if you can increase your creditor days from a net 10 to a net 15, let's say you increase by 5 days, that would be $9,000 in the bank that you could hold on to a little bit longer. So you can play around with these numbers too. Even one day you're going to realize $1,800 in the bank. Again, not overall profit, but just there for you to use by changing your debtor days, or creditor days rather, by 1. So let's recap, go over this. $730,000 outpatient physical therapist practice at a 10% profit margin. We collect our copays better. We manage our visits per case to make sure that people are getting in and achieving their goals. We manage our units per visit to make sure that we're billing for all the time and not underbilling. We get a few new patients in, and we decrease maybe our COGS and overhead if these are priority, and we end up with an increase to our profit, not total, but increase of $227,485. So we can change our business from $730,000 gross to $962,000 with a $300,000 profit potential. Might be a little bit of a stretch. There might be more expenses associated that kind of bring this total gain down, but that's a whole lot of increase over the 73 we were realizing before. what you've got here, if you want this sheet, you can go over to my resources page, show you that in a second. Got full instructions on how to complete it and fill it out. You've got a worksheet to do your scratch work or add any additional goals or what have you. You can share this and would urge you to do so. Share it with your business partners or your spouse or significant other. Make sure that they're on board because, by the way, to get these results, you're going to have to spend more time managing and working with your team, making sure they're doing what you need and want them to do. So there's going to be some growing pains and some processes that need to be put in place. And of course, I'm here if you need me for that. But you can go over to the resources page at sturdymckee.com, go to the Shopify downloads. The spreadsheet's there for you. There is a cost for the spreadsheet, but if it's not worth something to increase your profit by, let's say, even a fraction of this, then yeah, please don't buy it. But if you need me, want to help implement the changes, I'm available at sturdymckee.com as well.